It's almost just.
We're going to call to order the June 19th meeting of the West Sacramento City Council Redevelopment Successor Agency and Financing Authority. We're going to begin tonight as we do each week with the Pledge of Allegiance, so we'd like to invite our guests to join the council and staff in the pledge. Wait, which troop is here tonight? All right, which is going to be led by our guest from the Girl Scouts. All right, you ready to lead us in the pledge? All right, thank you so much, and apologies for late arrival. The council did meet in closed session this evening to confer with our labor negotiator regarding negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, Local 522, and with Stationary Engineers, Local 39. No action was taken, and to approve one item of initiation of litigation, and action was taken to approve that initiation. Great. All right, so with that, we're going to proceed to item 1A, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the City Council. As is noted on our agenda, the council is prohibited by state law from taking action or having a discussion about any items that are brought up under item 1A, but it is an important opportunity for a public forum. We ask that anyone wishing to address the council on this or any other item this evening to please fill out one of the yellow cards that's available near the front door and to turn it into the city clerk. In front of the city clerk is a timer that we use to make sure that everybody gets a chance to be heard, and to that end, we ask that all the comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Also in front of the clerk is a 20th century flip chart, and that simply indicates which agenda item is currently being considered. The clerk accepts the cards all the way up to the conclusion of the staff report on any particular agenda item. Once the council discussion and the public testimony begun, we don't take any additional cards. So if you're here for a specific item, just get the card in as soon as you can, but certainly before the end of the staff report. We also recognize that for some folks, speaking in public and before the audience of millions on TV and on the internet can cause some anxiety and nerves and hives and other symptoms. And so we ask that there not be any boos or catcalls or really even any other applause or other demonstrations, and that we try to maintain a civil, neighborly discourse here in our chambers. So with that, we have a couple of requests to speak under item 1A. And the first one is by... here they are, the Girl Scouts Troop 2233. Welcome, and thank you for doing a fantastic job of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. You first. Good evening, Mayor Cavalden and City of West Sacramento.
One moment. Let me ask one of your colleagues to give you a hand. You see the button right in front? Yes. Press that. Whoa. Uh-huh. Yeah, we're ready for you. All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Cabalden and City of West Sacramento Council members. My name is Lydia Ingram, and I stand before you with my Girl Scout sisters, Katie Dion, Addie Dion, and Haley Orozco, with West Sacramento's Girl Scout Troop 2233. We are all here to talk about the Bronze Award. The Bronze Award is the highest honor a Girl Scout junior can achieve.
As a troop, we thought of how we can create a change in our community. One big thing we noticed was how kids at schools and in the city were biking unsafely and without helmets. So we are putting together 3 bike-a-paloozas. These events will be held Thursday at 6:30 p.m. on July 9th, July 23rd, and August 13th. At each event, we will be teaching other scouts and kids about the importance of wearing a helmet, bike safety, and finding safe routes in West Sacramento. Then we'll take them on a bike cruise along some of West Sacramento's amazing bike trails and putting our newly learned skills to practice. Each bike cruise will start and end at different parks in West Sacramento.
Our goal is at the end of these biker paloozas, you will see a lot more kids riding their bikes safely with their helmets on, and enjoying the different bike walking trails the city has created for all of us to enjoy. Thank you for your time and all of your support with Girl Scouts.
Thank you all for coming tonight. That's fantastic. Thank you, Jared.
Very nice, thank you.
Is one of you, Ms. Orozco, did I hear correctly? Yes? Yes. No relation. No relation? That we know of yet. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for taking on a really important project. I mean, everything that you said is so true. I mean, we have such a richness of new bike trails and parks and things to see and do by bicycle. And more West Sacramentans are riding their bikes, West Sacramentans of all ages. Young people have been leading the way at the various elementary schools in the city, and now you're doing the same, but with an emphasis on safety and teaching, but teaching in the best way possible by getting out there and having a good time and exploring together. There's really no better way to learn, and so thank you so much for your leadership. Your presentations tonight were perfect, and just want to salute you and thank and congratulate you for your service and leadership. And Madam Vice Mayor, or Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything better than having our Brownie and Girl Scout troops join us in Chambers, and we're lucky enough to be flanked by one of our fellow council members, Bab Sandine, who is a previous Girl Scout. And I did brownies, but I wasn't the best brownie. In any case, the reason that some of us do what we do up here is for reasons you're doing what you're doing, and we all have a common want to make our city better in some way, even if it's a small way, right? But you guys are tackling some really good issues out there, and one of our dreams is to have every kid on their bike, bicycling to school and bicycling to the parks and enjoying the amenities we have in West Sacramento. And your projects that you're doing in July and August are going to help a lot of kids open their eyes to the possibilities. And alongside what we're trying to do with the trails, I'm hoping that this is an ongoing activity and we get more kids out there getting exercise, getting air, and being part of their community. So thanks, girls. I appreciate your leadership.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, girls. I really appreciate you coming in today and sharing what you're doing out there in the community, being community leaders. You are definitely a role model. You found a need, you found an area that needs to be served, and you're doing it with pride. And I really appreciate what you're doing for our community and helping other youth bike safely. So thank you very much for being here today and sharing that with us.
All right. You're in the only city in the entire Sacramento region that has a majority women city council. And I believe a majority of our department directors are women in West Sacramento, also unique in the region. So the city is waiting for you to take the reins of leadership, and this kind of project is exactly the way to build those skills and make a difference. So
And we
thank
don't
you so
even
much.
need to change the name tag, clearly, right? Orozco?
That's right. All right, thank you very much. And then also under item 1A, we have Anthony Latanzio.
Mr. Marco.
Yeah, little dog.
Frank, hold on. I came here, it was like on a bad note, and then I found out that you guys are really working on the agenda to get rid of the drugs on Solano Street. Okay, I appreciate it. You know what? I'm going to run, I'm going to be up there. I am. I'm trying to make it a safe city. Don't judge me for my looks. I'm an accomplished musician, and thanks, man. I heard what I wanted to hear. It's horrible. There's so many homeless people there, needles all over the block. It's about heroin. You need to get rid of it, right? You know that. It's no good. These kids won't be riding bikes if they get on that. They'll be selling them there. You know that. I'm not telling you something you don't know, right? Yes? Right? You know that, okay. You can't answer it, huh? All right, that's cool. Hey, thank you. Please, knock it out, please. It's been my cause for 5 years, and I'm gonna tell you something. Dale Earnhardt said, quitters never win and winners never quit. And I'm not gonna quit until it's done.
All right, thank you very much.
Hey, you have a good day.
You too. Thank you. All right, with that, then we have item 1B, which is council communications. Are there reports? And I've been warned that there are reports or other communications this evening. Councilmember Guerrero?
Yes, I was a part of the League of California Cities Rural Working Group. We had a conference call on June 10th. Charles Anderson, our regional representative, reported on the successful state budget passage of $2 billion in grants and program funding to address housing and homelessness crisis. The Rural Cities Working Group shared an update on an effort to join forces with the rural county representatives to work towards a joint rural summit with the governor. Those discussions will continue. The next Rural Working Group meeting will be in Winters, July 26th at the Community Center, and topics include development projects in Winters and a legislative update presentation by Assemblymember Cecilia Aguiar Curry. I also attended the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District meeting on June 12th, and we had an extensive discussion on the AB 2766 Clean Air Funds Committee recommendations. This included a supplemental request. The outcome did not include funding for West Sac projects. However, the discussion will continue with recommendations from APCO to provide guidance on a robust outreach effort for the next round of projects, and to also identify projects which are successful to promote best practice models to encourage more applications. Just keep in mind that the applicants are not just for local government. It can include schools, nonprofits, other organizations in the community. And the criteria is to reduce air pollution from motor vehicles as it related for planning, education, monitoring, enforcement, and technical studies necessary for implementation of the California Clean Air Act. We also approved the proposed 2019-20 budget, and prior to that, the Budget and Audit Committee met, and Councilmember Sandin was a participant. The goals for fiscal year 1920 include updating the financial policy and refine the in-house accounting system. They will also work with county health officers to assist local school districts to be prepared for smoke events associated with wildfires, also enhance engagement with the community through districts outreach and education programs, and stakeholders to apply for the VW Environmental Mitigation Plan funds. In addition, the League of Cities also convened their policy committees last Friday, where I participated in the Transportation Communications and Public Works Policy Committee. We received presentations from the California Choice Aggregation Issues and the California's Road User Charge Pilot Program. A takeaway on the road user charge is an understanding that the gas tax will be reduced and we now need to look at new revenue sources to continue improving our roads. We also took action on AB 1100 by Comlager Dove to address electrical vehicle parking requirements, and we supported that, but we opposed AB 1366, Gonzalez's bill, which addresses voice over internet protocols and which enables communication services. The restrictions on that would be pretty onerous for the cities. In addition, the Water Resource Agencies and Yolo Subbasin Ground Agency convened a board meeting Monday, June 17th, where I participated, and we received a couple of presentations on the update of the groundwater sustainability plan, development, and the Nature's Conservancy tools for assessing groundwater surface water connectivity under SGMA. The legislative update provided information on how the water tax was changed to instead commit $130 million of cap and trade funding in the next year and additional funding through 2030 to provide safe and affordable drinking water. I'm also happy to see the Pride Parade participants in our audience today, where I joined them in carrying the Gay Rights or Human Rights banner handmade by Jackie Smith, candidate for the Assembly 6th District. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Orozco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, had the greatest opportunity to stand with my colleagues on the council as we honored and welcomed Chasten Buttigieg to West Sacramento. As some of you may know, Chasten Buttigieg is the husband of one of our Democratic candidates for President of the United States, and it was just a fantastic honor to have him in our community, and specifically to showcase some of the programs we have, namely the Downtown Streets team. And it's fantastic to have the opportunity to get a crew together to show someone on the national level what it is that we do here in West Sacramento and what we do well. We had about 5 to 6 members who came out on a non-shift day to clean up West Capitol Avenue and to tell this person just what this program has meant to them and how it's impacted themselves and their colleagues. And one of them even remarked how she's not even on a shift and she will pick up trash around the city because it's just what we do here. And it was a very proud moment for me. As many of the audience members know, this is a program that I've been working on getting into West Sacramento. We're in our first year and it has been a tremendous success. So it was an honor to present that to Mr. Buttigieg. In addition, I am really pleased to announce the partnership with the City of West Sacramento and some of our community members. Recently, I was contacted by one of our residents who said that there was a memorial that was erected back in 1993 for one of West Sac's own, a man by the name of Herbie Wilfong III, and he passed away, unfortunately, from cystic fibrosis back in 1992. The community got together and put together a memorial in his honor, and it's over at the Broderick Boat Ramp, largely because he was an avid fisherman. He and his father, Herb Wilfong Sr., who's still with us and who lives in the Westmore Oaks, State Streets area, and he can't be missed because he's always out in front of his house, sitting there waving to people driving by and kids who are walking by and all of our neighbors, the most neighborly person you could possibly meet. However, Herb Sr.'s out, he survived his wife and his 2 children, including Herbie Wilfong. Anyhow, I was contacted to be, and was notified that the memorial had fallen into some disrepair, largely due to time and weather and vandalism. Our parks, it was just a matter of asking the question, well, what is it that we can do as a community to respond to this problem? And our Parks Department went out and gave it some TLC, and the next thing you know, our memorial is looking fantastic. So I wanted to mention and give kudos to our City Parks Department. Tracy, Michael, thank you very much for your attention. But also to invite the community to join your neighbors on July 5th at 10 a.m. at the Broderick Boat Ramp near that memorial, as we'll be doing a rededication ceremony in honor of Herbie Wilfong Jr. and his friends and Herb Wilfong Sr. So all are welcome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Thank you both. And a couple of reports. A week and a half ago, I represented the United States at the the first summit of the mayors of North America. It's a gathering of the leadership of the mayors from Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And I was specifically there to present on a couple of West Sacramento initiatives, as one of the continental leaders, I guess, on digitization of our services. So we presented on VIA, on our digital badge program, and I'm missing a few other, a whole bunch of the innovation stuff that's happening in West Sacramento was part of that presentation, and a lot of interest in Mexico and Canada in borrowing some of the projects and the innovations that we've been doing at cities that are smaller than Mexico City or Toronto. But it was a challenging summit because we convened a day after President Trump announced the threat of severe tariffs, and so the Mexican mayors were quite distracted with that. But I think and we did adopt a joint statement together on tariffs, because those tariffs would have had a devastating impact both on the people of this city as consumers, but also as the home of the port, and so many other international and global companies. That sort of trade war has a massive impact on employment and other issues in our community. So we did adopt a joint statement, and I'm sure it's not coincidence, but an hour and a half later, the president withdrew the threat. So it was a useful summit, first ever. The president of Mexico and the entire cabinet of the Mexican government participated in the session as well. So it's still ridiculous that the city of West Sacramento is there, but it was a tremendous honor, both to be there, but also to have so much of the work that we're doing being recognized broadly for its implications on economic opportunity and social justice and quality of life. Yesterday, the governor of California was here. We hosted him and other key state leaders, a couple of cabinet secretaries and department directors, as they met with in Circle for a site ceremony at the location of the new California Indian Heritage Center, at one of the most significant sites in West Sacramento at the confluence of the American and the Sacramento rivers. And you have probably seen the press reports. The governor at that tribal session issued a formal apology for the widespread atrocities that were committed by the government of the state of California in the early years of statehood, and the ramifications that remain with us as a result of so many of those policies and practices and cultural norms that were created with the help of prior governors and others. So it was a major event, but it was also the first time that the tribal leadership of California was all assembled at that site, and I think everyone could appreciate and acknowledge the significance of that location here in West Sacramento as really the best one in California for the new California Indian Heritage Center. So a great start to that project. Earlier this week, I think, Justine can help if I have the dates wrong, but earlier this week, we launched the Home Run Internship program, so at River City High School. It was this week. This is okay. This feels like it was like 6 months ago, but Monday, the day before yesterday, the students and the employers who are participating in the Home Run Internship program, both us as an employer, but also principally the private sector employers, convened for a training and orientation session that Jeff Miller and Justine and their team have put together in conjunction with our partners, and I provided the opening remarks at that. But it's a very impressive class of students, and also just an impressive group of employers of all sizes and scope who are stepping forward to be part of our commitment to guarantee a paid internship to every high school student that's in a college and career pathway. And so you can see it's really, I'm very proud to see the way that program is evolving and developing, and the work of our staff and our partners to really build out what was always a great idea and that we piloted really well, but now you can see it taking life as an expected and normal, regular part of what families and young people think about what their future is, which is unlimited in this city. So it was a really fantastic event. In the same vein, I don't know what day it was. I think it might have been late last week. We did a national webinar on how to design programs that integrate college savings accounts and free community college. We're one of the few communities that is actually pulling that off. A lot of cities are in the way, but we're actually implementing. And so I was asked to present on that, and then I think Jeff handled all the questions that I couldn't answer. But again, it was we continue to be featured nationally for the entire home run program. But that was a question that's vexed a lot of communities around how do you actually implement these things, and our staff is seen and the city government seen as an effective leader in that space. Last week I spent 2 days in Boston. Autodesk, the number one kind of CAD company, computer-aided design company in the country, hosted essentially a big ideas design studio with some of the main corporate and academic university and think tank and social justice organizations in the country. So there were about 18 of us that were there to rethink the future of work, but not like I think I reported last meeting that I had just come back from Notre Dame from a similar session. But this was a how can we be especially creative, and also what are some of the latest technologies on the private sector side that private employers are using to do a better job of helping to build new skills among their workforce in order to take advantage of automation and artificial intelligence, and not see their jobs disappear or dramatically change under their feet. So we'll get the report back from that design studio relatively soon, but it's actually pretty fascinating, and there was a lot of interest again in some of the strategies that we've been doing in West Sacramento. A lot of interest in our digital badge concepts, and I say concepts because we've done some digital badging more than most other places, but we have a long way to go to prove the work out. But there's a lot of interest nationally in what we and those other 11 or 12 cities are working on in the country. And then lastly, this morning, the design committee for the I Street Bridge, the new I Street, it's not the I Street Bridge, but the I Street Bridge replacement project met, and we are narrowing, based on all of the extensive feedback that we've received through the internet polls and in-person community workshops, narrowing the field. There's still, I think we'll end up with 4 or 5 that are still, options that are still out there, but that work is proceeding. There are going to be a lot of choices to be made around the balance between cost and, iconicness and street-level usability and a whole bunch of other issues that we will have to ultimately make some decisions about, but we are getting closer and closer to the decision point for both councils. So expect that to be coming soon. All right, thank God there's only 3 of us here tonight. We would be here for another 2 hours of reports. And I should just note that both Councilmember Sandine and Councilmember Ledesma are out of town this evening, but they will be back for our next meeting. But we have no appointments, so we'll move on from item 1C to item 2, which is a presentation of a proclamation declaring June 2019 as Immigration Heritage Month. Is there a motion on the proclamation?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Guerrero and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Orozco. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Councilmember Guerrero, would you like to present the proclamation on behalf of the council to Christopher Sanchez? Nice.
This is a proclamation of the City Council declaring June 2019 as Immigrant Heritage Month. Whereas generations of immigrants from all around the world built our country's economy and created our nation's unique character. Whereas immigrants and their children make up 42% of the California's population of all children in California. 47% have at least one parent who is an immigrant, and 75% of non-citizens live in households with citizens. And whereas immigrants continue to develop and expand businesses, innovate, strengthen our economy, and create American jobs in California. And whereas immigrants comprise more than 35% of California's civilian workforce, accounting for over 2/3 of all agricultural workers, nearly 1/2 of our workers in the manufacturing industry, over 4 for bringing this to our attention.
Immigration benefits.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, then with that, we're going to proceed to item 3, which is presentation of a proclamation declaring June 19th as LGBT Pride Month. Is there a motion on this one?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Orozco and seconded by Councilmember Guerrero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. The proclamation is adopted, so I'm going to present the proclamation at the podium. You going to put them on? All right, so I'm only going to read a small part of the resolution because we've adopted this before, but I want to begin by hearkening back to the first time we adopted a Pride Month proclamation, which was, I think, 15 years ago. And I brought this proclamation forward to the council and to not widespread enthusiasm, either inside the council or frankly from some of the folks in the community and some of the LGBT advocates in the region who thought it was too soon, that West Sacramento wasn't ready for something that seemed so momentous as a proclamation declaring Pride Month. And we did it anyway. I actually wasn't even out of the closet at the time that we brought the proclamation forward, and the council adopted it. I've said back then it was unanimous, and it was because nobody voted no, but I think there was one abstention, and it reflected the aspirations of where the community was going. The council was leading the way back then, even on a 4-0-1 vote. And I know even that one proclamation made a difference back in 2004. I heard from city employees, from other residents in the community, that just being seen and being acknowledged in a community that they weren't sure. They didn't have folks that were, out in public, and to see the city council that didn't look like today's city council was it reflected the many, many generations of West Sacramento, and to see all of those generations come together and say, yes, this is who we are, was a major step forward. And so it's just a reminder for me that sometimes declaring National Family Bread Baking Month, or whatever, the proclamations that we do can sometimes seem pedestrian, but they can be very important in helping a community to see itself and to see who it can be and who comprises it. And this one has certainly been that. So it's simply that this is now therefore proclaimed that the City Council of the City of West Sacramento hereby recognizes June 2019 as LGBT Pride Month, and invites everyone to respect, honor, and celebrate our diverse community and to continue building a culture of inclusiveness. And we've got our guests from Stonewall. This has been there's been an increasingly large contingent from West Sacramento in the Pride events every year. There was one year I couldn't go to Pride. I want to say it was 3 years ago. And when I opened up Twitter and I saw the entire rest of the city council for the first time had gone, because they wanted to make sure that people still saw West Sacramento, even if I wasn't there, and it warmed my heart to see my colleagues do that at that time, and this is a community that has gone through a journey, like the rest of the country and so many others, and I'm proud of people who have gone on that journey, and I'm proud of people in the community who have been curators of that journey and have said, I know maybe you're not ready for me, as an example, but could we get there in 5 years from now? Could we get there in 6 months from now? And almost in every case, people would say yes, and they were there in a week or two. But it was the intimacy of this community, the trust and the love that undergirds what West Sacramento is all about as a small town, that has made that journey for so many of us, even in this room, to enjoy the diversity and the embrace of our community, and to see how genuine and authentic it is because of the travel that had to happen in order for it to get there. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I don't know if, are you going to say a word, Mario?
Happy
Welcome.
to. Yep.
All right.
I came prepared just in case. First, just thank you on behalf of Sacramento Stonewall and our Stonewall Foundation, organizations that fight for LGBT equality, and that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender equality. We believe that this is a month that's an opportunity to acknowledge the struggles of the for LGBT equality. It's also important to recognize, as Mayor Cabaldon mentioned, that not too far back, there was a time when we didn't didn't have very many allies, and we certainly didn't have LGBT elected officials in the region. And even now, our community faces disproportionate numbers of LGBT homeless youth, and our transgender community experiences often physical violence and discrimination, much more so than the rest of the LGB community. We have made great progress, more so locally and in California than in some other parts of the country. It is progress to have, for example, a great city like this, like West Sacramento, have an openly gay mayor, great allies, strong allies like Councilmember Guerrero, no relation, although I'd be proud to. Thank you very much.
Well, contrary to popular belief, I didn't plan this at all. These are my glasses and my jacket, and they just happen to match up. But since the timing is appropriate, I just really want to say that, this is a pretty momentous occasion where we have the opportunity to really embrace shared beliefs. We as West Sacramentans aren't so different. We might have the same goals and might have different ways of getting there, but I think we all are connected in the common goal of loving one another or loving ourselves and living dignified and interesting lives that are authentic to our true selves. And I just really wanted to take a moment to commend our mayor for having the courage to embrace who he is and do that in front of his city at a State of the City address to share some of the most intimate details of his life and who he is. Because it sets an example. It gives those young West Sacramentans the courage and confidence to be authentic to themselves and to really say, I'm going to be a leader, and embrace those qualities that other people might cause me to not want to publicly embrace. So anyhow, I just wanted to take that opportunity to say thank you for leading the way for this proclamation for the youth of our city and for those of us who are still exploring who it is that we are.
Thank you.
I also want to echo the thank you, Mayor Cabaldon, for leading the way, for providing leadership for the community and helping them to embrace themselves, to be accepting of one another, and to continue the fight. We know it's still a fight out there, but it's a fight for the good. It's a fight to make sure that we express who we are, we express it genuinely and lovingly. And you've done that, Mayor Cabaldon, in ways that, we all appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, with that then, we're going to go into the consent agenda, which is items 4 through 21. Are there any items on consent that anyone wishes to remove or for separate question or comment?
None. Move to approve.
Wait, I had one, but I just assumed somebody else was already going to do it. Okay, now I'm not ready for it. Oh, the mobility action plan, sorry. So item 16, separate question. So that'll be the only one. So let's go to item 16, which is consideration and award of the professional services contract to WSP USA for the West Sacramento Mobility Action Plan. Sarah, welcome. Just reviewing this, I mean, we've green-lighted the mobility action plan. This is a key part of that work program. So the firm background and experience is like a normal firm in the transit sector would be, and particularly some of the principals that are primarily assigned to lead the work. And we've had a lot of success in sort of breaking some rules and norms in that space, or at least experimenting and iterating off of them. So, I mean, do you feel comfortable and confident that we're going to get the appropriately expansive and innovative thinking to be before us in the community? They're not the decision makers, we are. But are we going to get more than a regular transit plan or transport plan or bike plan or whatever, just with a new name on it? Or we're going to get something really interesting and exciting that's going to do justice to the work that you've already started, right?
That is entirely our intention. And yes, that is what we're planning to try to deliver. WSP was very competitive. It came down very close between two firms, both which really sold us that they could take us to that next level with the map, so.
Okay, just keep an eye, the kinds of projects that they cite now that are more traditional, like short-range transit plan for this agency or whatever. There aren't too many agencies that are doing the kind of mobility planning that we are at this scale, so, but there's simply a cursory review of the qualifications and backgrounds of the principals. But-
They do have some particularly appealing teaming, so their sub on contract was also a standout for us, but they also have some new staff who have been extremely involved in the Smart Cities Challenge in the past on the national level and some of the Smart Cities collaborative work. So that was one of the big selling points, that they're very on the edge of those conversations, so if that helps.
Terrific, thanks. All right, if there's no further question or debate, then is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved by Councilmember Guerrero, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Orozco. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion carries. So that brings us to item 22, which is consideration and readoption of resolutions 19-59, 19-60, 19-61, 19-62, approving statewide park development and community revitalization program grant applications for 4 park sites. We took this up already. We did all the required hearings and input and whatever, but we did not take a roll call vote. So the request before us now is simply to retake the action and do so by roll call vote, correct?
Yeah, the requirement of the grant program is to have a roll call vote. So we're going to have one roll call vote for all 4 resolutions.
All right.
Move to approve.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Cabaldon,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerrero,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Orozco.
Yes.
All right, it still passes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Erin. Okay, item 23 is consideration of resolution 19-70, adopting the operations and maintenance budget for fiscal years 2019-20 and 2020-21.
Yes, we have a PowerPoint. Yes, please. And all my notes are in the PowerPoint, so I'm going to wait for that to be pulled up. Well, I guess I can get started. This is consideration of Resolution 1970 adopting the budget for the next 2 years. I was before you a month ago on May 15th for a workshop where we went over, let's see, if I can remember how to work this. Oops. You want me to click? Sure, thank you. So agenda, we're going to look at what has changed since that meeting. Not much has changed, but we're going to look at what has changed. So we'll look at our revised budget assumptions, specific changes since the workshop on the 15th, and then the recommended actions for tonight. So the instructions for departments when they were pulling together their budgets were to do a status quo budget for now. I know we went through the background of the process at the last meeting, talking about why we're just looking at an operations and maintenance budget, and supplemental requests and decision packages and CIP are coming later. We're going through a reconciliation to make sure that you get all of the information in front of you at one time. So we asked them to input what they needed, request what they need for continuing the existing service levels, a status quo budget. Some notable changes we also talked about that are listed there. I'm not going to go through all of them. However, when we get to the personnel, the labor budget, we did budget at current salary levels with anticipated changes within the range. That's different from several years ago. I think we were budgeting like at the top of the range, so we're looking at something a little more precise. This budget now includes the range adjustments, salary increases, and benefit changes for unrepresented groups. It also includes 4 recommended position reclassifications. There are several attachments to your packet that go over the details of all of those proposed changes, and also the position reallocations that we discussed at the budget workshop, which include one moving the homeless coordinator position from Measure E to the general fund. We can go ahead to the next slide, please. For the general fund, looking at some of the budget assumptions with some of the other changes included, the CalPERS increases are about between 10 and 12% annually for the 2-year budget. That's about $800,000 for the general fund. Again, we included minimum wage increases for part-time staff, and also negotiated wage and benefit changes for the adopted MOUs, as well as what's included tonight is the changes for the unrepresented groups, which is something that we're asking you to take action on tonight. For all funds, the CalPERS increases are approximately $1.1 million annually. And just, I think to make this clear for the public as well as the council, I think you know this, but the projections for the current year, 18-19, you might see some very large projections for capital outlay. This has to do with the creation of a new capital projects fund, and we're going to move all of the projects that currently live in other funds to that fund, so we would transfer all of the appropriations and the money that goes with them, just to explain why you'll see some large numbers. So to go over the changes since the workshop, one of the pieces that changed, there was a supplemental request for a fire apparatus. In the second year, we had shown a little bit larger savings than we're actually showing in the budget now. It's about $40,000, reduced from $100,000 to $40,000, and that's simply due to the anticipated timing of receiving the engine. It has a long lead time to be built. We've updated the general support allocation to all funds with the new proposed labor costs. We've also updated the Public Works Administration with new labor costs. We have eliminated the transfer out from the general fund to the Public Works Engineering Fund because we have now rolled that fund, the Hazardous Materials Fund, and the CDD Planning Division Fund into the general fund. As a reminder, those are funds that typically have non-billable activities that are those activities are typically borne by the general fund. And so we're doing transfers at the end of the year to true up those funds, and so it made sense to roll them into this fund. We revised our cannabis revenue projections based on our third quarter revenues received. We had received a little bit of extra money, so you'll see an increase in those projections. And then we've incorporated the decision packages that received support from you at the last meeting. So to look at those, this is a slide you saw at the last meeting. We did include the replacement fire apparatus and the additional summer intern for Engineering and Transportation Division. The two items that are not included is the change we proposed for the road maintenance worker to go to Measure K. That did not receive support. And then we had also requested about $87,000 from the Measure E fund to help cover a gap in the preschools. As we've looked at, relooked at our projections and the available fund balance, that transfer is not anticipated to be needed in the first year. And as you know, there's a larger discussion to be had about, the future funding of those schools with the loss of some state funding. So we'll be coming back to you with a workshop to talk about the second year. Okay, so overall, we're looking at general fund revenues, a 3% increase per year for property tax. Not really any changes in the sales tax. There's a decrease in the first year, again, due to a timing for CDTFA getting us the revenue that was due for the prior year. About 5% increase per year in TOT, which includes our expected new hotel development. The cannabis revenues, we've actually increased our projections for 1920 from about $520,000 a year to $670,000, and in 2021, it goes from about $600,000 to about $725,000, so we're seeing a little bit more revenues there. The total general fund revenues for 18-19 are anticipated at $54.4 million. You'll see a large jump to $59.9 million in 19-20, and that just has to do with rolling those three funds into the general fund. They come in with their revenues and their expenses. And then a modest increase, 3.75% for the following year. For general fund expenses, $50.9 million expected for this year, $57.1 next year, again, from rolling all of those funds into the general fund, and then just under a 3% increase for the following year. And that includes the changes to the unrepresented compensation and benefits that we're asking you to take action on tonight. So overall, the general fund surplus is projected at $3.5 million for this year, $2.8 million for next year, and $3.4 million for the following year. I also included what is not included in those assumptions. The two strike-through items are things that we have since included in the budget. So assumptions for ongoing labor negotiations, supplemental requests, capital project funding, funding of reserves, funding for facilities we know we need, those things are not included in this budget. It really is just a status quo operations and maintenance budget. So tonight, that's my brief summary. I know you have a lot of detail in your packets. I'm willing to answer whatever questions you have, but our recommended actions, we're asking you to adopt the resolution approving the budget, approve the classification plan for fiscal year 1920 effective July 1st, approve the amended and updated classification plan for the same year effective July 6th. The reason there's two has to do with the timing of some of the changes for the unrepresented groups. And then approve the updated benefit summaries for the unrepresented employee groups. So with that, I'd love to take any questions or provide any additional detail you might need.
All right, are there questions?
I do have some questions. Okay, great. Roberta, I just wanted to go over it, by page area, page 3, when you're looking at shifting the homeless coordinator position from a limited term to a full-time permanent position. As a limited term, it came across as like the individual did not get benefits or anything like that. Was that person did they receive full benefits?
Absolutely. A limited term position is just like a full-time permanent, except it's not permanent. It's got a limited duration, but they receive benefits.
So the even pension included, so they're not starting new? Okay, okay, good to know. And then under operations and maintenance expenses, in my experience in the county, if you are utilizing a computer system or any of the software associated or anything that you need to make sure that, it's updated and maintained, you can bill a program, and get matching funds for all of that. Are any of these programs permissible to receive matching funds? I know in the county that's, permitted, but anything in the city that we're using?
That's a big question. There may be certain things that we do work with the federal government or the state where we're using a program that is required by them, which I know the county does in a lot of cases, in which cases I would believe there might be some funding there. Overall, though, for our general financial systems or permitting systems and those types of things, those are city-selected and city-used, and there are not additional funds available from the state or federal government for those. However, if it is related to work that we do with the state or federal government or a project for which we're receiving grant funding, we would charge those eligible costs to the other funding source.
And I'd like for us to be, mindful of that, because I do recall when we had the SB 82 program for homeless outreach initially, we were not billing Medi-Cal for those that were eligible for Medi-Cal, and so the amount of money that was there kind of we ran out, and we weren't able to get additional funding or something like that. I do recall that when I was on the mental health board, it was a huge financial loss, and with programs like that, I do know that you can, tap Medi-Cal to get that matching funds, even if it's the city. We have to work something out so that we can draw down, even if any county programs, we can draw down what we can and make sure that, we're not completely utilizing our own resources. If our homeless coordinator is eligible to receive a reimbursement because he's servicing, populations that the county should be servicing. I'd like for us to, have a conversation so that we get reimbursed for the services that he's doing the assessment or whatever it is that he's doing on the front line on behalf of the county to get them entry into those services. So that way we don't lose any, I know we're, putting the cost, but I'd like for us to be able to start and establish that kind of relationship. Maybe we could have 2 marks out there. We just take a look at ways to be able to explore those opportunities and establish like an MOU. I know it's possible.
Sure, something like that may already exist. I'm not privy to it because I don't manage the program, but it's certainly something to look into.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then, so that is in addition to the IT. I was also taking a look at that. Community development people. In page 6, you went through the Community Development Planning Division Fund, and in reading through it, it sounded like there was a period of time when some funding was used and then it transitioned to a different work or a different project. And in just taking a look at that, I think what you're doing is rolling it up so that all of what is happening under one, like, cost center or something like that.
Sure, just to give a little bit more background on that. This is one fund where, a lot of the planners will be able to charge their time and recover the costs through fees for plan review and other things.
Right.
But a lot of their work has to do with furthering, our economic development goals, updating our general plan, things that we can't necessarily bill to developers or to other folks for providing services. And those costs are typically borne by the general fund. So several years ago, after doing, loans, short-term loans, to cover the deficit in that fund, especially during sort of recession and lower development and activity years, we realized that that fund was not going to recuperate or come up with the money to be able to pay back that loan, because we're limited by state law in charging only up to the cost of our providing services. So there was no time that we were going to be able to charge more and recuperate and pay back that loan. So at that time, I think in 2017, the council approved writing off those loans. And at that time, they also approved utilizing some Measure G funding for activities that were eligible for Measure G funding and not billable to developers. At the workshop, we had talked about the potential of moving that fund into the Measure G fund, which didn't receive support, and so we've instead moved it into the general fund. There is some Measure G funding coming into the general fund now for that program to support the activities that are eligible to be charged to Measure G related to, planning and economic development activities. Any other overages would be borne by the general fund. And so it's to both increase transparency and then also to reduce some of the administrative work in balancing and making transfers at the end of the year. And it made a lot of sense, I think, to me, to do that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I agree. And then, let's see, under GF 101. So I'm looking at the PERS cost for the general fund, and I'm reading just, 7.4 million. That's the amount?
For 1920, yes, 7.4 million.
Okay. And I have been asking for that figure, but this is pretty significant amount of money. And in Measure E, let me see where that's at. So in taking a look at the different projects, I know there's a breakdown later on in the explanation. There's a breakdown for different projects, and I see that the Winter Warming Center has, a potential to return. And I'd like to take into consideration, early on, looking at what the costs actually were versus what was allocated, because I think they received funding, but looking early on at the actual cost that in my observation, there was just a limited amount of resources that they received. A lot of it was charitable and could be used one time only. But providing additional support and, doing what we can. I know Councilmember Orozco and Sandine can, now we have experienced it firsthand what they need. Partnering with the county to draw down more county funding in ways that we can expand the service capacity so that we can make sure that they have all the resources they need, including like a case manager or something like that, so that we can maximize housing, or rental vouchers or something that they can, expand so that we can get people into housing and providing them with with the resources. I do recall going in there and seeing that there was a little bit of a gap in what the community services were, so, maybe working in advance to partner with the county on building a little book, training for anybody that's going to be doing it, even if they're volunteering, on what the resources are going to be that they're going to be able to pass on to participants, so they're educated and informed, and we can get them immediately into services for that brief period of time, for that window that we're operating, and get them into some kind of, permanent housing and support. As we take a look at, round 2 of the Winter Warming Center. And that's it.
Do you have any questions? No. Yeah, I appreciate the PowerPoint format in redline form. That was useful in trying to tease out what had happened from the last meeting. And I'm supportive of the overall proposal. This is the best budget we've had in a decade in terms of just the financial situation. So I think we're fortunate to be in this place. It is the right time, though, to get all of our financial procedures and some of these allocations in order. And so I appreciate the work that's been done in that space. It is also the right time to make sure that we are treating the ballot measure funds with the utmost of integrity. This is not the time to be shifting general fund expenditures into ballot measure funds. And so I think that message has been very clearly sent and received, that this is when the general fund is in this position, the general fund needs to do the general fund's job. And so that the ballot measures can do precisely what the voters approve them to do. And we stretch those boundaries during periods of major fiscal distress, because the voters, when they vote for a ballot measure, they don't want you to turn the water off or stop stop fighting crime. So it's not as though it's all or nothing, but when the general fund is in the right situation, it's important to rebalance that and get it right. So I think that these are the right steps to do that. I'm very proud of what we're doing here with respect to the unrepresented employees who are, it's the most diverse group of staff that we have in terms of all the different jobs that they do inside city government, and also in some of the stuff that the city is best loved for, but by the residents, in terms of things like VIA as an example, or the home run. There's just so many things that are distinctive and that really matter in the quality of life and the sense of place and identity and community that we have in this city. And it hasn't always been the employee unit that's been treated as well. And I'm glad that we're making that right in this proposal. And for the folks in that unit who have stuck with us through some very tough budgets and some difficult times, I salute them. I salute you if you can, if you ever hear this, and thank you. And I think this budget puts them. We're taking them up first, also in this time right now. I think it's the first time we've done that. And it's very appropriate. So I think that's very positive. I do want to draw. I really value some of the suggestions that Councilmember Guerrero has made around looking for. Just because the budget's in good situation doesn't mean you don't go and look in the couch for all the quarters. That's why we've been successful in the city. Is that we're always hungry. Where can we find a little bit more money here and a little bit more money there? We're not the county though. Our financial structure is very different in the sense that we don't, the vast majority of our money doesn't come through the state. We're not an instrument. I mean, we're legally an instrumentality of the state, but we're not functionally an instrumentality of the state. So our programs and services we are not operating as the local facing entity of the state as the county does for mental health and healthcare services and most of its functions. So we just have a very different financial system. And as I a couple times a year do, I want to channel Bill Christoph, because we cannot fill in for all the things that the county can't do that are the county's responsibility, and the Section 17,000 general welfare responsibility. And so we are not the principal provider of social services in the city, and we can't become that. Even though we have a good budget this year, it's not financially sustainable for the city to move out of its core mission. What we have done, I think very appropriately, is figure out where is the right intersection, the things that the city is responsible for in public safety, in promoting the development of housing, including affordable housing, and jobs development, and and connecting those to the services that others provide. But there is a bright line between what a city does and what a county does, and that bright line from a budgetary perspective is really important, because once we cross that, once we sort of make the case, even inside our own community, that we are responsible for everything, that's really a bottomless commitment, and that we can't meet. And so I think we've had some very effective partnerships with the county and with all the other partners that in the mental health world and in the clinics and hospitals and social services and health agencies, and those were unprecedented. Those were unheard of a decade ago. The amount of progress that's been made by several members of this council, Supervisor Villegas and others, to really make sure that we are connecting and participating and elevating and accelerating improvements in the delivery and the accessibility and the connection of social services in our community. But we're not in a position where we can simply fill in all of the gaps in what the county does through the city's funds. And our best bet is when the county itself is healthy, And when they have the revenues that they need and the support that they need, and they hear the needs that we have in the community in order to meet them. And I think things where we demonstrate that, whether it's through Bridge to Housing or Downtown Streets or through the Transitional Housing Program, that we're finding where our space is in ways that's contained enough that it's not a threat to our basic funding for public safety or for parks or for clean water, but that helps to make the connections and make sure that folks don't fall through the cracks. So I think these are the right questions to be asking, but I do want to, just as a budgetary matter, kind of, make sure we remember what our legal charter is, essentially, as a city, and what our responsibility is, and to make sure that we're working with the county to maximize their capacity to be able to do their job effectively in partnership with us. All right, and is there anything further on this? I mean, you've done a good job of telling us that this is already what we said last time, so I think you're not expecting a wide range of changes, and it doesn't sound like anyone's proposed any, other than to keep looking for more opportunities and for some more potential sources of revenue and savings as well, so good work.
Okay.
All right, so then is there a motion on the?
Motion to approve the staff recommendation?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Nice job.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, item 24 is consideration of homebuyer assistance program guidelines and adoption of resolution 19-72, approving an appropriation from the Measure N fund. Mr. Huerta.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This evening, we're asking the council to approve guidelines for a new homebuyer assistance program. The program has been designed to complement a recently announced Wells Fargo program known as the Neighborhood Lift program. In May, Wells Fargo announced funding for their Neighborhood Lift program, which will provide forgivable loans of $20,000 to homebuyers in Sacramento County and the city of West Sacramento. Because West Sacramento was included in the eligible purchase area, and given that West Sacramento's median home price is almost $380,000, staff is proposing a local homebuyer assistance program to further assist West Sacramento homebuyers. The proposed program would only be open to applicants who have been previously approved by the Neighborhood Lift program, and would match the $20,000 in assistance. However, the city assistance would not be forgivable. It would be a loan that would have to be repaid at the time of resale, change in ownership, if a home ceases to become the applicant's primary residence, or at the end of the first mortgage term, whichever comes first. The assistance would also be limited to homes located in the area north of the Deepwater Ship Channel and the Arlington Oaks neighborhood. Because the proposed program is meant to complement the Neighborhood Lift program, our proposed program guidelines have been modeled very closely to the Neighborhood Lift requirements, especially when dealing with the underwriting requirements. Lastly, staff is recommending that $200,000 in Measure N funds be appropriated for the proposed city program, which would provide assistance to 10 West Sacramento homebuyers. Staff feels that the proposed program as designed aligns with the policy goals that were recently approved for the Measure N fund, specifically to further inclusive economic development by providing homeownership opportunities to buyers who may not otherwise be able to purchase a home in West Sacramento. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you. I first want to have a lot of questions. So the program we are matching here is the Wells Fargo Lift program, and there was an event that took place. And so in the event were there applications that were received, and so they met 100% of capacity of what they had in their amount of money that they were going to distribute. So they have. I'm trying to figure out is that what happened? And so they have people that have already, have been pre-approved?
That is correct.
Okay.
So we did speak with NeighborWorks Homeownership Center. That is the entity that Wells Fargo has partnered with to administer their Neighborhood Lift program. And all of the funds that Wells Fargo had committed to the Lift program have been committed, were
Okay.
committed at that event. and those that have been pre-approved are currently in the process of finding eligible homes to purchase.
And how many of those people live in West Sacramento?
That information we don't know. What I can tell you, though, is that we were assisting Wells Fargo and NeighborWorks in promoting their Neighborhood Live program. We did some marketing on our website, and we tried to promote it through other means that we have. We did receive a lot of calls from residents inquiring about the Neighborhood Live program, and they were inquiring about any additional assistance that the city may have available to them as well. So, based on the number of calls that we received, there is certainly a lot of interest from local residents, but the actual number of applicants that applied for the LIVE program that are West Sacramento residents, I don't have that information.
So so we're expecting that this will only go as a match for those that qualified for that?
That is correct. It would only be open to applicants who have been approved by the LIVE program.
And the use of Measure N money is, the rationale is for economic development purposes, and can you help me justify that a little bit, just to give me the rationale behind that?
Certainly. Well, again, the theory is that we would be providing assistance to households or individuals who may not otherwise be able to purchase a home because of the high cost of housing, especially limiting the purchase area to basically the 95605 zip code, the neighborhoods of Broderick, Arlington Oaks, which, at least in the past, have been more disadvantaged than other areas of the city. We feel that that is a way to promote inclusive economic development for those individuals and those households.
Okay. Okay, so that's where I'm having a hard time, just making sure that we are achieving the goal of Measure N. Just, it's a hard sell for me, just to see that happen. And I appreciate the program, I value the program, but there's a lot we can do, as we're looking at the budget. There's a lot of need and other demand out there that I see we can improve on as well. This sounds like it'll impact 10 people. For the amount of money, and I want to make sure that the money we spend achieves the biggest bang for our buck for those that are going to be visibly benefiting from it. And if we're not doing a lot of, outreach and, or even among our local realtors, for example, for the economic development of their, being able to, say, hey, we got this program. So any outreach we can improve on to help them, be aware of it and to be educated, to be trained on what they can do to find out who these 10 people, it's like a needle in the haystack out there, who are you? That for me is, I think, the hard sell.
Sure.
How do we get there?
And as you may have noted from the guidelines, we are proposing a priority system, so that whatever numbers of applications that we receive, we will be prioritizing applicants who either live or work full-time in the city of West Sacramento. So obviously, we would be looking to provide those economic opportunities to our local residents or people who are employed full-time in West Sacramento.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And just, is there a way we can improve on the outreach?
We can certainly do, we can do a lot of outreach, obviously because of the limited amount of funds. We also don't want to provide false hope and get an influx of applicants and only have funding for 10 for 10 households. But we can certainly do a lot of outreach. We have contact information from our previous first-time homebuyer assistance program. So we have contact information for lenders, realtors, local lenders and realtors that we can reach out to and specifically try to target them.
I'd also like to add, though, that the pool of buyers is somewhat, it's already kind of fixed because Wells Fargo has already pre-qualified people. So the data we don't have at the moment is how many of those pre-qualified applicants are either West Sacramento residents or employees in our city. We will try to get that information, but it already is kind of self-limiting by that existing pool that are pre-qualified through Wells Fargo.
Okay. Right, and, yeah.
I think you've done a great job on this. I mean, I totally get the line of questions, but $20,000 per moving someone into a stable, affordable housing at these income levels is a really good deal compared to, building, units at $200,000 subsidy or whatever. This is a very, very good, cost-effective way, because of Wells Fargo, and because it's a very, very particular narrow band of low and middle-income home buyers. So it's very cost-effective compared to all of our other strategies around affordability. It can't apply to very many people for the reasons that you've described. And the Wells Fargo program is a great one, and we were really lucky that Wells Fargo agreed to include us in their definition of Sacramento County, essentially, to do this program, and we really need it. But as you've noted in the staff report, the $20,000 from Wells Fargo isn't enough to qualify for any houses that are actually on the market in the city. And so this relatively small amount of money per household compared to all the other affordable housing programs that we've done could unlock real permanent, owner-occupied housing for a small number of families, but at this price point, it's more smart, cost-effective than most of the other things that we've done. So I think this has been smartly designed. Maybe either you or Jeff can answer this issue. So there's priority for West Sacramento residents and employees, but I guess there's not federal funds involved in this, as far as I can tell. It's just us and a private bank.
That is correct.
So I'm wondering, this has brought to light how little affordable, even in the market, housing is. I mean, and we're talking about every part of the city. I mean, you have to imagine the most economically challenged part of the city, it's almost impossible to find a place for $375,000, right? So I have some ethical concerns about saying we will subsidize somebody else who doesn't live or work here to move in to the very few places that are under $400,000 in the city, and therefore reducing our supply of affordable housing for residents and for the folks that we've identified before in our prioritization policy. So was there a reason why we could only do priority and couldn't just say, look, we're not looking to, we don't have a grant for this, we're using Measure N money, so we want to make sure we're being as smart about it as possible, and we want to make that investment in the neighborhoods that are being affected by these major price increases in the city.
Correct, yeah. I mean, the answer to that is we are using local funds, so we can design the program as we feel is best for our funding. So there is no requirement to just do a priority system. Our line of thought was that because there are only a small amount of loans that we can make, we are truly anticipating a lot of applicants trying to obtain this funding. So our thought was that by limiting or providing that priority system, most, if not all, of the applicants would be West Sacramento residents or working full-time in West Sacramento. But if the council chooses to limit the funding to just West Sacramento residents or those employed full-time, that is certainly an option that we can do, because again, it's not federal or state funding. So unless there's a legal requirement that I'm not aware of.
There usually is.
I think this is a topic we've obviously talked about. I think in the universe of risk, this is probably the lowest risk category, purely local funds and pre-screened applicants through another project, so that there's reduces the risk that somehow the city is accused of discriminating in some fashion. We're sort of starting with a pool and then extending purely local funds to local residents. I think you can probably put that limitation on it. And if it turned out for some reason that there aren't enough applicants from West Sacramento, come back and change it.
Yeah, I would suggest we at least think about this, because, I mean, you just imagine, if you live in Casa Mobile Home Park and and you want to buy a home in Bright, in the city. You want to buy the one house that is right now under $400,000, and you didn't go to the neighborhood lift program, or maybe you didn't qualify for whatever reason. You've been saving and saving and saving and saving, and right now it's at $350, and you're hoping the price will come down. Maybe you'll be able to get it, and then you find out that the city has given somebody from Citrus Heights $20,000 to outbid you. It just doesn't, in terms of a inclusive economic development strategy or an anti-gentrification strategy, it feels like the opposite. So, I mean, I just, to me, it would be, you know, we've had the larger debate about the preferences and stuff like that in the overall housing program, but I think in this particular case, it's different, and because we're talking about like a cash outlay going forward, and I would prefer, frankly, that we do West Sac residents and employees, and if we don't get them and we want to have another discussion about, well, should we open it up or not, then I think we could do that, but rather than, you know, rather than take that, you know, the last 3 sub $400,000 houses and bid them out to non-West Sacramento, it just feels that feels the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish.
I agree.
Well, I would also want to add, if we're looking at amending to include local realtors to benefit from this initiative, so that, you know, we keep it all local, business owners and those who work and reside here in some way. So if we can keep it all local, so, you know, I know we're going to be excluding the business market realtors as well, but I'd like to see our local realtors, you know, finding a way to be able to participate so that we can, you know, make sure that they are involved and learn about these programs as well and benefit in the community. For me, that would provide the economic, you know, side of it.
We can, as I mentioned before, we can certainly do targeted marketing to some of our local realtors, but as the city manager pointed out earlier, ultimately it'll be the decision of the home buyer who they want to use for their realtor or their loan officer. And they haven't, you know, they have already gone through a pre-approval process. They may already have a realtor that they're working with who may not be a local realtor. So we would be, by providing a specific requirement that they use a local realtor, we may be making them make that change from somebody who they already have.
I know that there are a few local realtors that are already promoting the Neighborhood Lift program as a business tool. So, I mean, I think the word is getting out. For me, it was a long journey as well, and I won't deny that I had the same analysis about, okay, that's $200,000 and it only benefits 10, and that's where I started. Ultimately, one of the biggest issues faced by people in West Sacramento is, and traditionally has been, homelessness. And when you ask, well, what are we doing about that? Well, there's no place for folks to live. And I'm not saying that the homeless are the ones that are going to be benefiting from Neighborhood Lift and jumping into these houses. I'm not that, it's not that elementary of an analysis, but there's a need to get people into these homes. And so affordable housing, economic development, okay, how do I bridge that? Well, we have an opportunity that came before us with Neighborhood Lift, and it's a unique opportunity, and my first instinct was, well, why don't you just leave it? Like, why not just leave them? That's $20,000. That's a lot of money that people have, you know, don't have to save up. Well, when looking at the cost of buying a house today in West Sacramento, that $20,000 doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't help that much. So what do we do in order to get people motivated, people from West Sacramento to get motivated to look at these houses and to get in? And so I understand that this limited opportunity, because I did have the question, well, why not 10 at 10,000, or why not 5 at 20,000? Like, how can we cut? That's a lot of money, and I'm being cheap with it, because it's taxpayer just voted this in, and we wanted to make sure we were very precise with its use. But I understand that doing $10,000 doesn't get us to the point where people can likely afford to get into a new home. Perhaps we are at 5 at 20, because we don't know what the pool of folks from West Sacramento who have been pre-approved will be, right? And so it's only up to $200,000, I understand, Raul, is that right? Mm-hmm. So if the money is not used, it goes back into the pool and can be repurposed for other uses if not utilized?
That's true.
Okay, and so do we have a sunset date by which it needs to be utilized, and then we can say, okay, well, it wasn't used, let's move on?
We could add a sunset date. We don't have one as of right now.
Okay.
But we have an effective one, because the Neighborhood Lift program, I mean, if you get chosen, you only have a certain number of weeks or days in order to stay eligible.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see that it be coordinated with the LIFT program, so at least we have some plan, and we know where we're going. I also appreciate that it is limited, not only, because that was a thing too, Mr. Mayor, well, how am I going to justify folks coming from other areas? And that's happened to us before, where we've opened up an opportunity and other people come in and enjoy it. And I would say we need to be exclusive to West Sacramento residents with these resources, because priority, again, with me isn't enough. But again, going back to my original point, I appreciate that it's geographically limited, and I appreciate that it's candidate limited as well. And based on the information that I've received since reading the report the very first time and sitting up here today, I'm satisfied, and I'm looking forward to this being a fantastic influx into our community.
Just so that I'm clear, are we limiting the program, or does the council want to limit the program to just West Sacramento residents, or West Sacramento resident and those employed full-time in West Sacramento?
So what do you have in here so far? Where is it located in this stuff?
Our priority system was both.
That's what I
West
thought.
Sacramento residents and those employed full-time in West Sacramento.
Right, that's what I thought it was already, which I think that's what you wanted, right? But that's originally what was
Yeah.
included.
I think the recommendation based on the feedback would be to change Section 2 eligible applicants to be required to be either residents of the city or employed full-time in the city, and make that a requirement as opposed to a priority.
Yeah, so both. I'm comfortable with that, both.
Number 2, okay. So it being both the resident and employee, or just a resident?
One or the
One
other.
or the other.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that when you and the city manager first concocted this approach, I had some of these questions too, but it actually turns out to be a very simple algebra problem. Right, the reason why this happens is that in order to qualify for a neighborhood lift, you can only have an income up to a certain number. So that's your income can only be this high. Well, at that income, you're only going to have the bank will only approve you to buy a house of this value, right? So it's not really that and we know from the housing inventory how many houses there are up above or below that value, of which, and there are none. So the question was how much does it take to get anybody who's at the top of that low and middle income range, at the very top of it, up to the point where they could afford even the cheapest house in West Sacramento, and that's where you end up with $20,000. So it is a lot of money, but it's exactly the amount of money necessary in order to make the program, the Wells Fargo investment, really make a difference in people's lives. And so I think it was very smartly designed, and I thought, to me, it was exactly why Measure N was put in place, and it was entrepreneurship of the economic development division and the city manager in coming up with this very targeted, limited time approach makes a lot of sense as an example of what Measure N can do.
I have an additional question, though, and I want to take this a little further. There could be a scenario where we have 10 applicants who work full-time for Walmart or Target who live in Citrus Heights or Carmichael and want to utilize this program to move to West Sacramento, and that would usurp the purpose of trying to limit it. And I'm wondering if there needs to be a bigger priority given to current West Sacramento residents and secondarily those who are employed in West Sacramento.
So a requirement that you be one or the other to be eligible, and then within that eligibility, a priority for
Would be
for
given
the resident
first
side.
to residents, and then secondarily to those who are, or maybe those who have both, and then second would be residents, and then third would be.
I think the language pretty much covered the first priority being, a resident and/or employed. in
Well,
Section
the
2.
and/or part gives you, it could be all employed.
It could be both, and then or, a resident or employed. So that and I don't see that there's other, references to what the priority is. It's pretty much either or is what I read it, is the way I read it.
Currently, the way that it's written, it's either a resident of West Sacramento or somebody who works
Who's employed.
full-time.
So somebody who works full-time could completely take, if it's weighed evenly, then we could be in a position where someone who's working here full-time, which
Right.
I love that, but at the same time, I don't want to take the place of current West Sacramento, the example that Mayor gave. where we have someone who's living in West Sacramento, who has a dream of home ownership in West Sacramento, wants to stay here, and they've already made that investment. So,
So what if living in, if living in West Sacramento was the first tiebreaker? So at the proposal of the Economic Development and Housing Commission, you added this tiebreaker provision, correct? That said, okay, if there's too many people that are eligible, then here's how we would break the tie. Eligible and have priority, and here's how we break the tie. So what if there was a two-tier tiebreaker, and the first tier was
Living in West Sacramento.
living in West Sacramento?
Yes, we could,
Right,
we could add that.
whether an apartment on the streets, couch surfing, whatever, but living in West Sacramento. So it maintains the structure of what you've done. I think what Councilmember Guerrero was referencing,
I
and
think that's the way I read it, yeah. It's the prioritization is living first and then employed, or employed after. So it's a combination of living and employed, or living and then employed.
okay.
okay.
So that's how I read the priority. I have a question that Councilmember Carina mentioned, is in the LIFT program, as it's 100% capacity, and there is, Mayor Gabaldon mentioned that there's a period of time that they get to remain, on that list before they lose that eligibility. So can you explain how that works? And then does it open up to a different pool, and how long the LIFT program is for?
Correct. I mean, it'll be around for as long as that money is still around. So,
okay.
But you're right. So they have 60 days.
60 days.
From the time of eligibility to find a home and enter into a contract.
Okay.
And ultimately close escrow. If they're not able to find a home and enter into a contract, then they lose their reservation.
Oh.
And that money goes back into the pool for whoever is next in line. So that'll happen subsequently until all the funds are granted out.
Okay, that's fast.
It is fast. So it is a program designed to look for home buyers who are ready to buy.
Fast.
Exactly.
And can you tell me, I'm not in the real estate market, how many of those homes do we have in our pool here in West Sac? How many, do you know, percentage-wise?
I don't know the number of percentage of homes. I mean, I just before the council, I was looking at some of the home prices in Brighton, Broderick. I saw at least about a dozen listings.
Okay.
Ranging all the way from 500,000 to 200,000. There's a big range.
Okay. There is a big range then, so you think we have enough of a pool, at least for the next 4 months?
I think we should have enough of a pool, because again, we're not just limiting the program to Brighton, Broderick, we're also including Arlington Oaks.
Okay.
Which historically has also been a lower income neighborhood. And also some of the areas west of Sacramento Avenue. There are some residential areas, Yellow Street. So I think that there should be, based on what I've seen from the listings, enough stock to make it a reality.
Okay, good. And then your relationship in working with the Chamber of Commerce, where I think some folks can help get the word out to our employees, and, those that are working in the city, all those listed here, and our veterans that are residing here, just to make sure that we get the word out. You'll be doing the outreach?
Yes.
But there's only outreach to the people who've been.
I know, and we just don't know who they are.
No, but I mean, will Wells Fargo share?
We will request that information, certainly, to help with that exact point.
We have worked with NeighborWorks Homeownership Center in the past, so they've been very cooperative with us when we've asked for information. The council may recall that they were actually the administrator for our first-time homebuyer assistance program. So we actually have a very good working relationship with the staff who is administering the LIFT program. So we can probably try to get as much information as we can.
And just to make sure that we can get, just to make a connection with new applicants, as those that don't get the home, they lose their eligibility, to try to get the new applicants, that we can start tracking who they are in some way. Is that possible?
We can try to discuss that with NeighborWorks to see if there's a way that they can provide that information as well. They would have to track specifically the West Sacramento applicants. I don't know if they'll have the capacity to do that, but...
Have they signaled that they're going to reopen I thought the applications were all done, so that if I don't use my eligibility within 60 days, since they had, a couple hundred people at the thing, that they'll go down that they're nowhere near the point where they would reopen.
So they wouldn't necessarily reopen, they would go to the waiting list that they have.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, they have a waiting list?
They do have a very long waiting
Oh,
list,
well,
yes.
that's good. Can we add to the waiting list? So then the clock doesn't start on the waiting list either, for the 60 days?
No, it's only for those who have been pre-approved.
Okay.
Who have received a reservation. As soon as they get that reservation, that's when the 60-day clock
Okay.
begins.
Well, to the extent that we can find out who is eligible, just to encourage, a relationship in finding out that information, or even giving them our information on our program so that they can apply, so that they can reach out and say, hey, by the way, in addition to that, you have this, maybe that'll get you a home faster.
Yes,
So do
correct.
the reverse.
Yeah, so those that have been pre-approved for the LIFT program that are West Sacramento residents or work full-time, we can try to find a way to reach them and notify them that we may have some funds available for them.
Okay.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Right, to give them the information. And then also try to, do some just do a workshop so that our local realtors and the Chamber of Commerce, find out a little bit more about our program. So in case anybody's interested or looking, they can refer them to you.
So we will be hosting a homebuyer education workshop here in City Hall. One of the requirements of the LIFT program is that homebuyers go through an 8-hour homebuyer education course, and we will be hosting one of those here in City Hall next month.
Next month, okay,
So we can
great.
try to take that opportunity to do some of that outreach as well.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Well, tell me a little bit more about the Broderick Arlington Oaks selection. I mean, why did we pick?
It's actually the whole north part of the city.
It is,
I
okay.
think those are the areas that are of focus because of the price ranges, but to be clear on that, it is it's Arlington Oaks plus the north part, north of the Barge Canal.
North of okay, so
Yes.
that's the 2015 definition of the north.
However you want to define it, but yeah, north of the Barge Canal.
I'm pretty sure Westmore Oaks doesn't think of itself that way. And neither is Broderick think of Westmore Oaks that way, but okay. So everything but Southport.
All of the area north of the canal, correct. And we added Arlington Oaks because Arlington Oaks is in Southport.
Yeah. Is there, if I am a qualified West Sacramentan at this income level and I get the award, what's our, and I could actually find a home within the price range, the allowed price range in Southport, what's our policy reason for not including the remainder of Southport?
Because we were trying to follow the Measure N policy that restricts the funding to be used for the areas north of the Deepwater Ship Channel.
So but this is not really about geography. This is about, because Measure N is also, the part of Measure N that for me this was about was the economic slice of the city. So this is about, low and low middle income families in our city, wherever they live, being able to stay in the city and whatever. So that's also part. I mean, there are programs that are, I forget the term that the subcommittee used for the things that are not geographically rooted. So it just seems odd if you're currently living in Casa Mobile Home Park and you're able somehow to buy a place in Bridgeway Island, for example, or on Nancy Street, and you can make it work. You're still a low-income resident of our city who's currently experiencing housing insecurity. Why we would say that that's not the right policy outcome?
Yeah, I think part of the idea was to focus investment in that targeted area, but you're correct that the policy would still conform to the policy if we opened it up to the entire city because it's about the targeted population. And that was a definition that you're referring to. So
Yeah.
it would certainly simplify the program to open it up to the entire city. I think the pool of
Hey, that's a
homes
good
is
idea,
is much
yeah.
smaller, but
Yeah, I
there's no
mean, it
reason
seems
we couldn't do
unlikely
it,
that
so.
most people could do it, but,
Right.
I mean, we have a lot, there are a lot of residents in Southport that, whose families are, their roots are in the rest of the city. And so, and if I can, if I'm living on Nancy Street and I can find a way for grandma to move down the street from me, I mean, that is a community win. So yeah, to me, I would remove the geographic
I would agree,
piece.
because I had a viewer just inform me that there are only 4 homes available in the region that was described, and I think
Yeah.
that's
Well, that's
kind of.
limited to Broderick, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not north of the Shipwater, or is it the barge canal?
So I
Barge Canal, yeah.
I just want to broaden in the availability of the homes that they can access instead of limiting them to a geographic area, since that's a possibility.
You're not so sure? Or you're sure?
Well, I don't, hey, I mean, I understand that, okay, here's where I am. I'm for limiting the geographic area because I'm about economic development, and I realize that can expand to the entire city, but I envision a scenario too where you have someone who's working in West Sacramento and buys a home in Bridgeway Lakes, and what does that say about inclusive economic development for my city? What I'm talking about is revitalizing communities, getting homeowners in there that are proud of their homes and making them, giving them the curb appeal that they deserve, and that's where I'm seeing the focus here. I'm not opposed, however, to having a situation where, okay, there's absolutely no inventory, and so, but there is a home that's in the Nancy Betty, Brenda streets. That's still a relatively older community, not too old, but I just don't want a situation where measure and dollars are going to the richest parts of this city.
Yep. I agree, although I feel like it's about the family, but I mean, just the barge canal geography is becoming, thankfully, actually, geography is becoming less of a distinctive feature between what you're describing, challenged neighborhoods and not challenged neighborhoods. I mean, yes, that is our common mythology, that Southport's rich and the rest of the city is poor. And that's just,
fair. Sorry about that.
that the Linden Loop is no richer than the rivers. There are parts of, even some of the newer parts of Southport that are no richer than the Bridge District. And so just the barge canal as a divider is a very, very blunt instrument around trying to get what you're describing. If this were serving 100 people, and it would make sense from a staff level perspective to really have a lot more fine-grained approach, I think that would make sense, but I just worry that that's not. It's the right value, but I'm not sure it plays out in the actual geography when you see, okay, somebody's moved to behind the gates at the rivers. That's not better necessarily than Betty and Nancy.
No, I agree with that.
I don't know.
Well, it would certainly open up the pool of
It would-
homes available to home buyers, and
Right.
again, because of the limit of the income, their purchase power would be limited, and thus the homes that they would be able to purchase.
We got, based on the viewer, it's an additional 3 homes, so we're up to 7 at this point citywide. So I think, though, I'm looking at it from the perspective of the family and the dream of a family wanting to own a home. And, we can keep them all in one part of town, but, we're all about, opening up the doors for everybody to participate, citywide in something. It's actually, a city, it's our borders, our entire city. And so giving them an opportunity to choose which part of the city they want to live in and feel that that's going to be the community they want to live in. So it's a matter of choice instead of saying, nope, you're locked into these, these boundaries, half of the city, as opposed to our entire city. And I think it takes away from, the north and the south. This is what we're about. I think it's a citywide approach, and I'd like to make sure that we give access and choice to the individual to choose where they want to live.
So is that direction from the council to open the program citywide?
Well, here's the thing about tonight, we all have to agree on everything. So, it makes it easy for staff to figure it out, because you don't have to count. It's just everybody or nothing, so, and maybe we still need to have a further discussion about it, so.
I mean, I agree absolutely with the values expressed and the choice. And I agree that, we don't want to have these generalizations that have existed for years about what each, geographical region in the city represents. We are one city. I agree with that 100%. When I'm talking about inclusive economic development, I'm thinking about getting people occupying homes and having the pride of home ownership in an area where there have been homes that have been vacant, or maybe we, need a little bit more revitalization. But I do understand and appreciate also that income limits would limit purchasing power, which might not. I mean, that might just be the deciding factor anyway. So, and Mr. City Manager, could you explain to me one more time why it is that we had that factor, or the geographic factor as
I think the initial thought was that if the policy, the measure in policy was trying to focus investment in some of those historically more disadvantaged parts of town, then it would make sense to have the geographic limitation on where the homes will be purchased to encourage investment in those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That only deals with the geographic issue, but as the mayor pointed out, there's the people component of Measure N, that we're also targeting populations that have historically been sort of left behind. And so I think you can make the justification that it conforms with the policy by opening up to the whole city if the population being served is, meeting that definition in the Measure N policy. And I think under this circumstance, it would fit.
Okay.
Does this make sense, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were to come back with if this was a roaring success and you came back and said, now we want to spend $1 million doing this and we want a bigger program, I would definitely, the concept that you described, which is like maximizing investments in the most challenged areas, or the areas that have been left behind, makes a lot of sense. It's just it would require a lot more specificity than just north or south of the Barge Canal, I think, and it probably, I'm just skeptical it's worth the staff effort to process all of that just for the 10 in this particular case. But I think the point's exactly right. It's just when you describe what you were describing, like West Oaks is historic. I lived there. It was historically the most advantaged neighborhood in the entire city. So it's just weird for it to be categorized in that way. And it's just one of many of those challenges. And so, I mean, if we had something easy, I was trying to think, okay, what if we said opportunity zone or something else? But there's not one good single proxy that at least I can imagine that would make it simple to administer and would be able to get to the level of detail that I think you're searching for, which I 100% agree with.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Could I recap the
Yes.
staff recommendation and see if we're in
Yes.
alignment here?
Okay.
So on the program guidelines in section 2, we would make it a requirement to either live or work full-time in the city, giving first priority to those that live in the city currently. And then in section 6, we would make the entire city the eligible area for where homes can be purchased. Those would be the 2 revisions to the guidelines.
And, okay.
Let's do the first one again.
So on the first one, the staff recommendation would be to require that applicants either live already in West Sacramento or work full-time, with priority given to those that live in West Sacramento, if there's a tiebreaker.
All right, the way that Councilmember Guerrero described the tie-breaking,
Right.
tiebreaker scheme. Yeah, okay. Okay, there's no.
Move to approve?
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or any amendments or anything else? All right, then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Great staff work on this and very timely, but also thanks, I want to particularly acknowledge the council. This is that was a very good debate around what we're trying to accomplish and what inclusive economic development was and who we are as a city, and working through each of the issues together, I think was a good example of how we can move the city forward on some issues that really matter. So thanks, everybody. Item 25 is consideration of award of construction contract to Abide Builders Incorporated for Memorial Park Americans with Disability Act Upgrades Project and Resolution 19-74 to appropriate additional funding.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am Jay Chahal, the project manager for the Memorial Park ADA Upgrades Project, and the purpose of this presentation is to seek council approval for the authorization to award construction contract for the Memorial Park project and the adoption of Resolution 19-74. Some of the background for the project is this project was a result of an ADA settlement agreement made in 2010. All parks listed in the agreement needed to be upgraded by 2020, except Bright Park, which needed to be upgraded by 2025. The city has already upgraded all the parks listed in the settlement except for Memorial Park and Bright Park. The required upgrades include ADA accessible restrooms, dugouts, parking improvements, and site amenities. As part of the design process, staff conducted an open house for this project on July 10th. Residents had the opportunity to give feedback at the open house. The open house was well attended with over 75 residents and stakeholders that participated. Those who were unable to attend were given the opportunity to provide feedback via social media and the city's website. Based on the feedback, priorities were identified and available funding was discussed. On August 7th, the project was presented to the Parks Commission. The Commission embraced concerns about the number of trees that will be removed by this project. Staff addressed this feedback from the public and the Commission and returned to the Commission on October 2nd with a revised preliminary design. The proposed design would save as many developed trees as possible. The proposal also had some enhancements based on the feedback received from the public. The Commission supported staff's proposal and recommended council approve the preferred design. Upon feedback from the public and the Commission, the following was added to the design of the project. The historic dugouts were incorporated with ADA lifts to meet compliance. Staff worked with West Sac Little League to design a multi-use restroom concession stand that would benefit all users of the park. By incorporating fundraising tiles into sections of the exterior walls of the concession stand portion of the building, it allowed Little League to develop an ongoing fundraising source that helped fund current and future enhancements, such as furnishing the interior of the concession stand building. Along with the ADA ramps, the play area of the park also saw some enhancements, such as the net climber and a shade structure to cover it. A shaded picnic area with ADA compliant seating, along with a group barbecue, creates an improved area for the community to host events. The current non-compliant scorekeepers booths will be replaced with ground level booths to meet access requirements. Irrigation upgrades along with new plantings were added to enhance the appearance of the park. Incorporating the preferred enhancements recommended by the public and the Commission while completing the ADA upgrades creates a unique opportunity to make the community improvements while retaining the park's history. By incorporating a paved central spine, not only are access requirements met, it also eases maintenance activities and increases the visibility from a safety standpoint. Other enhancements include accessible bleachers, furnishings, and tree plantings. Now, going into the bidding process, the Public Works Department, in conjunction with the Parks and Recreation Department, conducted a competitive bid process to select a contractor to construct the Memorial Park ADA Upgrades Project. On April 24th, the bid package was posted on the city's website, advertised in the local paper, and routed to the Chamber of Commerce. The bid package was made available to the public through ciplist.com. CIP List posted the project on their website and through the local building exchanges. At the close of the advertisement period, city staff received 2 bids from qualified bidders. Bids were received and publicly opened on May 29th. After examining the contractor licenses, work experience, qualifications, and proposals submitted, each of the complete bid packages, staff determined that Abide Builders, a local West Sacramento contractor, is the lowest cost, responsible bidder with a total bid price of $1,638,120. Council has already funded $1.3 million for this project. Staff is seeking council's approval of Resolution 19-74 to fund the remaining $1,343,401. This funding would come from a combination of sources, including $1.1 million Measure N funds and one-time general funds of $243,401. Tonight, staff is seeking council's approval of adopting Resolution 19-74 and award a contract to Abide Builders for the construction of the Memorial Park ADA Upgrades Project. Upon approval of the proposed contract, staff will issue the notice to proceed of the contract to begin on July 10th, 2019. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Orozco.
Actually, can I ask the justification behind doing the 1.1 million for Measure N funds and the 243 for one-time general funds? Is there any, I think I might know the answer to this, but is there any problem with us if we decided to do the 243, 401, not from one-time general funds, but rather from Measure N funds?
There's no issue with that. With the policy framework adopted by council at the last meeting, it allows for some flexibility as long as we meet the 20% and the 30% on a long-term basis. So we could certainly go above that. The 1.1 million was identified because that is the estimated amount of 20% of the revenues for this year and next fiscal year. And so that's how that number was developed. But the policy allows for some flexibility on an annual basis as long as the long term kind of sticks within those percentage guidelines. So you could approve all of the amount to come from Measure N.
Because the Measure N funds are specifically earmarked for particular projects, whether they be inclusive economic development or community improvements, for the remaining 50%. But one-time general funds, Roberta, those can be used for a lot more things, correct?
Yes, those can be used for anything.
Okay.
Any questions?
Just a quick question on the contractor, Abide Builders. Just give me a little background, where they're located and who they are. I think I missed on the presentation that happened in 2018, the background on that, when you reviewed who that was. Just provide a little background. No, you didn't?
We didn't.
We didn't know. We just opened the bids
Oh, I see.
back on May 29th, and Abide Builders was chosen as the contractor. They were the lowest cost and most responsive, so they were chosen there. They're a local West Sacramento contractor.
Local West Sacramento. Very good, thank you.
And Jay, I believe they've had history working on other projects in West Sacramento.
That is correct. They have had history working with other projects with the city. I'm not 100% sure of exactly all the projects, but they have done work for the city, many other projects.
That's great, and hopefully they employ local West Sacramento residents as well to contribute in our park. For me, that's important. It's our city park, and I think historically, we've had a lot of, a lot of our residents invest their time and, just a strong commitment to be a part of that growth.
All right, thanks, Jay. So we had one request to speak on this from Dave Jans from, we said West Sacramento Little League, but also Commissioner Jans. Please come forward.
Hi, where are you going? This is Tom Bennett. He's a vice president of the West Sacramento Little League.
Coach Tom.
Yep, he's great and very involved with the kids and the youth in the community. I know it's late. I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time, and I was actually just come from a baseball game. It's still happening. The West Sacramento AAA Cubs actually won the Tournament of Champions. So they won their division, and then they went on and won the Tournament of Champions. And the Major A's, I was just informed, advanced to the championship game.
Wow.
So West Sacramento is, and has been, and is becoming known as a baseball city. So that the timing of this project is pretty good. So I just wanted to kind of come and kind of reiterate some of the stuff that we've already talked about with this project, because I know it's a big ask here, and just want to touch on some of the things that are around community involvement and update you on some of the things that West Sacramento Little League and the Parks Department have been doing. But first, thank you to the City Council and to the city staff. They've been really great, and to the citizens in the community who have been hugely supportive of not just this project, but of the Little League through our fundraising efforts, and continuing to support with registration and play and in our parades and things like that. We all know the benefits of youth sports and what it does for the kids who are involved in that, building their confidence, giving them a sense of identity, and promoting discipline through their practice and through their lifestyle. Fundraising has been a huge part of what we've been doing, and the community involvement in supporting the fundraising has been huge. We've raised over $40,000 last year, or this past season, and those were mainly from 2 annual fundraisers that we hope to continue to do. So we're trying to do our part to raise money for memorial renovations as well, and we just kicked off our custom tile thing, which we're hoping to plaster around the whole new building that's coming. And if we can realize the full potential of that, I mean, that can be huge. That could be anywhere from 50 to another 90,000. And that's all being told for Memorial Park renovations. So we're hoping to do our part to contribute where areas that, and we're working with city staff, continuing to work with them to identify areas that might not be included in this project, some benefits that might be needed for shade or whatever it may be, park amenities. We have to outfit the interior of the concession stands, which is a huge part of our revenue annually. So these types of things are coming from our fundraising efforts. I have notes here, I'm sorry. Keep shutting off on me. And then finally, just to reiterate, we have an opportunity to build something truly unique and inspiring here. We really do. And parents and children with disabilities can feel at home at our new park, and by having the same experience as everyone else. And that's sometimes overlooked when we do this. It started off with a lawsuit, which is sometimes viewed as negative, but it's really turned into something truly positive. And I just wanted to reiterate that. There's a Challenger division I think I've spoke of before, which exists in Antelope, which is specific for children with disabilities. And we're hoping to coordinate with them to expand that to the new Memorial Park so that we can include the Challenger division here locally and bring in not just our Tournament of Champions that we've been involved in, state tournaments, bringing them here to generate revenue for our city, bring people from out of town to experience what we've built, to shop at our restaurants, use our amenities, things like that. So that could be another advantage to this park. So we have that chance for people from all over our area to come and experience. Really, as a citizen of West Sac for almost 20 years, I've always seen the development here as being something that's setting a new standard for others to follow. And I think this is a great example of setting the new standard of community improvement. And really hits the nail on the head with Measure N. And this will be another great example of how West Sacramento sets a new standard for other cities to follow with a brand new, unique, one-of-a-kind, ADA accessible Little League Park. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate you letting us come up and explain. Do you want to say anything?
I do have a couple things to add. One of the things I noticed in the beginning of the meeting tonight is we talked about how West Sacramento is unique in its trailblazing and what it does. It sets the trend for other communities to follow. via is one of the things that, was brought up. In my experience as a UIC, a chief umpire for Little League, I got to travel across the state to different fields. Western Region is based down in San Bernardino. That's where our players strive to go before they go to Williamsport for the Little League Championship and the Little League World Series. Our park in this small little town is comparable to this Western Region's ballpark. Great feel, homely, the dugouts were sunken down just like a major leaguer field. And when we hosted the state tournament last year, everybody was commenting on how incredible our field was last year. And I want to say thank you very much for allowing us to keep that uniqueness to this field. That was something that we really wanted to keep because it sets us apart from the Thomas, which is a beautiful field, but it's a flat. We got this dug in. It makes these kids feel like they are part of the major leagues, to be honest with you. And we have our T-ballers, like she says, I'm Coach Tom, I coach T-ball, I love those kids. But that is something that they get to grow up through the Little League to be able to strive to be able to be in those dugouts. And a lot of them want to be in there from day one in T-ball. And one other thing with the history, if anybody didn't know, Austin Roberts, he's a pitcher for Sac State. He came up through our West Sac Little League, and he was actually selected in the 8th round by the Pittsburgh Pirates. He is now a Major League Baseball pitcher who came up through our West Sac Little League. And once again, it's getting late, so I don't want to take more time, but thank you. And thank you for letting us keep our field.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions? Or?
Well, I just want to thank you for all the time and energy and effort you put into the partnership in drafting what we have today and arriving to where we are today and helping us, in the city. This great partnership and your leadership together with those that are involved in the city to make this all happen. Truly a moment of pride in our city to see what we've accomplished and moving forward to continue to help all the families, the children, most importantly, and economically speaking, it is definitely a way to move forward in that direction. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to say anything?
I will.
All right. Well, it's no secret that I sit up here not only as a council member, but also as a West Sac Little League mom. I was a mom and volunteer in the snack bar well before I set up on this dais. And it's the reason why I decided to run and serve this community, because of the lens that I had and the ability to mingle with my neighbors on the ball field and to see the kids in this community benefit from what is essentially the heart of West Sacramento, our Memorial Park. It also happens to be my local neighborhood park. And so this item is very special to me. The price tag is, it is something. And so, I had to look at this and say, okay, how do we come out of the ballpark, no pun intended, with, essentially, over $2 million investment. And then ultimately, I come across this saying, and I wrote it down. It says, "There is indeed a fundamental goodness to baseball, a game that can be played well by persons of virtually any body type, and that also requires the most careful balance between both highly visible individual responsibility and achievement and the communal purposes of a team." And the part where it said it can be played by persons of virtually any body type, okay, that's where we started. Mm-hmm. Because it was imposed upon us initially, almost as a burden, and I remember that discussion, a very heated discussion in these chambers. And I responded and said, but don't we want that? Don't we want baseball for every single West Sacramento child? Don't we want, sitting in the snack bar, don't we want to have a facility that we can be proud of and our parents would encourage more volunteerism? Because that's what we want more than anything, right? But there is nothing more charming and graceful than the Little League Park we have in West Sacramento. On opening day, the city comes alive, and on closing ceremonies, it's any town USA. And those are the two of the most exciting times in my life as a resident here, to see all the children coming out with their joy and their leadership and their camaraderie. So this isn't just a price tag to give a facelift and a legal accessibility lift, but also an investment in the pride of our community. There are 44 teams and 600 players and all of their family members and extended family that go and sit on those ballparks, those playing fields, right? And we have this incredible opportunity to make that experience translate in ways that are just as far beyond the field, just the experience these kids have. And so I will say that I am absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to vote on this. I think the community improvements item in Measure N is perfectly suited. I didn't know we were going to come out the gate so quickly with Measure N, but this is, Memorial Park is, it is very unique, and those sunken dugouts are an attraction. And to see those kids out there with their Oakland A's jerseys, we got sponsored, we got attention, and West Sacramento is on the map. And soon, we are going to have the best baseball park in all of the region. So I'm fully supportive of this item, and I just look forward to moving it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for being here again. I mean, at every step of this process, you've come to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock meetings repeatedly, even though you know we're going to vote for it, because we've been working on this so long and so hard. But you're here every single time with the same commitment, and you're here, and all between the meetings, you're doing all the other work, and everything that's been said by both my colleagues. I mean, it doesn't just happen. I mean, these are the amount of passion, sacrifice, but in the name of your passion and joy in the young people and in the community it would be astonishing anywhere but West Sacramento, where this is what makes us who we are. And Little League is that mirror on who we are and who we want to be, and why we are neighbors with each other. This project's been a great example of that. It's Memorial Park is for fighting and gin is for drinking, or whatever. I think that's what the old saying was. We've gone through the entire roller coaster, that anything that matters to you, you go through. With guns blazing and hearts breaking and the tears, and then the hope, and figuring it out together. And in order to achieve what the Mayor Pro Tem just described. And it would not have been, at no stage of this would it have moved forward without your leadership, your colleagues on the board, your predecessors, and just the Little League family that cared so much about this, that no matter how hard it got, you were always looking for the win. And we kept finding them, and so I'm really proud of it too. And this is the right kind of investment. I also actually think the expenditure of the one-time general funds is the right investment too, and because in some sense, because those are funds, the general fund is our most precious resource, right? Because it could be spent on anything. So you want to make sure you save that till the end. But we're not saving it to the end here, because this one is so important that even if there was no Measure N, we would have to find some way to fund this. I mean, this is not a supplemental community improvement in the true sense. We have to do this, not for the legal reasons, but for everything that's already been said. So I think the fund balance, the funding mix that the city manager and the administrative services director has proposed is exactly the right one, because it does reflect that without taking all of the Measure N funds for community improvements for the next 5 years, which is what we would have had to done otherwise. It's the right financial strategy to achieve the right outcome. So I'm definitely supportive of the item. And
Could I ask one quick question?
Sure, of course.
I'm sorry, just wanted to go back to what Councilmember Orozco was asking earlier on Measure N and the use of, wanted to ask our city manager on the use or of Measure N money solely, the entire, instead of the mix, maybe the entire amount under Measure N. Is that possible?
There certainly is capacity in fiscal year 1920, total funds for both community improvements and inclusive economic development, even considering the last item you approved. So it's really a policy call. The policy, the measuring policy does allow for that percentage to float year to year, as I think Roberta pointed out earlier. So we do have capacity. We do have general fund capacity as well, but that is our most flexible funding source, and we do have other needs. So I think it really is a policy call for the council in terms of going from 1.1 million to 1.3 and 343, so.
So our general fund has more flexibility versus our Measure M, which is more specific?
Right, and Measure N has a budget policy that restricts the funding uses to, the community improvements, inclusive economic development.
Right.
General fund, as Roberta mentioned, can be used for any public purpose, general fund money. And as you know, we do have demands on that fund for other priorities. So you definitely have that option, and it's something that we would be able to work out with the current measuring capacity.
Measure N's not a federal grant, right? So, I mean,
No.
we sometimes get in that we start to transfer the way we think about outside funding sources to our own funding. And like, oh, we should charge as much as we possibly can to Measure N so we can preserve the flexibility of the general fund. That's exactly wrong. That's exactly the opposite of what our policy should be. Our policy should be to do what the voters said for Measure N. And the voters across the city voted for community improvements. And so taking all of the community improvements money for 3 years or whatever, because yes, the 20% floats, but that's a long time to float $1 million plus. I mean, that's consuming all of the annualized money for community improvements just for the one project, when we don't have to. I mean, we have one-time general fund money that can't be spent on salaries or other permanent commitments, and that isn't that's probably the strongest expression of our values is how we spend the general fund. And this project definitely, to me, rises to that level. But so charging it against Measure N, I think it's not the most equitable to all the other community improvement projects in the city that at least deserve to be in line and not have to wait till 2025. But also, we have a reasonable balance of one-time general funds.
But would we be having to wait till 2025? Because I'm wondering what is the 20% in 2018, 2019, or excuse me, 1920?
Give me a second here. About 745,000 would be the 20% number for 1920. But remember, we have 3 months of revenue that 18-19. So the 1.1 million is the combination for the 20% of both 18-19 and 19-20. Going to the additional amount would require you to dip into the 30%
2021.
inclusive economic development. So again, it could align with the policy. The staff recommendation was to go ahead and allocate the one-time general fund money, knowing that we had that limit on the 20%, but the policy does allow the council to make that call.
Wow. The only consideration I had was that because of the competing priorities for general fund and the flexibility to be used in multiple ways, and the fact that we didn't have anything that was necessarily earmarked for the 343, is it 343 or 243 that was remaining, that it could be, the policy is flexible to allow for use of Measure N funds in other categories, but again, if there's not consensus on this council, we can go with the staff recommendation.
Right, and I felt the same way.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about it. I think this is, because the one-time general fund, if we don't spend it on this project, we will spend it on something else, but it will not be Bright Park. It won't be, it won't be the dog park. It will not be a community improvement. So we're essentially subsidizing the sort of amorphous one-time general fund, which is not. It's because it's not permanent. We don't spend a lot of energy to kind of figuring out at the council level those projects. So we're subsidizing that at the expense of other community improvement projects in the city that should be in line and should at least have a shot next year or the year after.
At this point, I'd like to move the item.
Second?
All right. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, hearing none, that motion carries. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to the whole team, Public Works, Parks, of course, Finance, City Manager's Office, everybody that's worked on this.
Bald guys in the
Public
matching
Information
shirts, yeah.
Office, everyone in the city has worked on this project at some point, yes. So, thanks so much. All right, council calendar?
Good
Amanda?
evening, Mayor, council members. Couple of items coming up on the LAFCO meeting in your packet. It shows that it will be in Woodland, council chambers on June 27th. It'll actually be in Woodland. And then on June 28th, Friday, is the PD Youth Academy graduation in the Galleria. That's at noon. And then July 2nd is our West Sacramento Home Run Night at the River Cats game, and that's at 7 o'clock, and I believe the mayor will be there for that. And that's all for me.
Where you go?
I came for the graduation. Okay, any questions on the calendar? City Manager report?
Yeah, just a few quick items tonight. First, we talked about the home run interns starting on Monday. We also had our summer steps interns at City Hall start on Monday. So they will be showing up at council meetings as part of the deal. So over the next couple of months, you'll see them.
Are these two of our summer steps interns right here?
I don't know. I haven't met them all myself, but yeah, so we have City Hall full of bright young interns helping out on city priorities. So you'll have opportunities to see them in the future. Secondly, some good news we received earlier this week. The county, for its application of No Place Like Home funds, was awarded its full amount requested. So that means about $6.7 million for our permanent supportive housing project is now secured. That project, the developer, Mercy Housing, will be applying for low-income housing tax credits next, and that's one of the last big sources that are needed on that project, so good progress there. And then third, the item you approved earlier for the 4 parks grant applications, that process comes with a pretty robust community outreach requirement, and so we're going to be holding a series of workshops on each of those parks in the coming weeks. There's a flyer, I believe, that was left over on the, for those of you left in the crowd, you can pick it up over there, but there'll be a lot of outreach there'll be a lot of outreach on our channels about those workshops coming up, so I just want to make you aware of that.
Okay, questions on City Manager report? City Attorney report? Staff direction, members of the council? All right, and we have no future agenda item requests, so Mayor Pro Tem Orozco.
Thank you. Back in 1999, Officer Billy Bean was killed in the line of duty in Sacramento, and I was actually an intern with the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office at the time, and I worked on that case with now Judge Michael Savage, who was then one of our homicide DAs. Tonight, a Sacramento police officer has been seriously wounded in the line of duty, and I wanted to make a motion to adjourn in honor of our first responders and our police officers who go out and risk their lives on the daily to keep our community safe.
Second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned in their honor. Thank you.